Hi, welcome to this week's installment of Inclusion Revolution. I'm your host, Tova, and I'm so pleased you're here to join us for this week's show because we have somebody very special on. Amber is here to talk to us, Amber Doucette, excuse me. Amber is here to talk to us about a very revolutionary idea and program to support youth with disabilities in our community. What I really loved about this program is it kind of builds on the theme of our last show, which was about the DJing program, and again, some outside-the-box ideas and creative artistic ideas to engage our youth and to ensure that they're actually getting the transferable skills, the confidence building, and as discussed in our last show, some anger management as well, and ways of coping in their community. And Amber is one of the authors and the main illustrator for the book, and that's why I'm so pleased she came to join us today. So welcome, Amber.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely no problem. So I know the book is The Fountain of Harmony. First of all, how does a group come to write a book?
Well, as the 4Youth group, we were supposed to come up with a project that we could all work on together, and we wanted to do something that would affect the community more, not just inside the office. So we wanted to do something bigger, so we chose, after lots of debating, to do a children's book.
I understand. What I like that you just said was that the fact that, first of all, you all work together as a team, and I'm sure that's part of what the 4Youth program was initially all about. I'm certainly familiar with it. So I know that it's about creating a project for 5 youth with disabilities, diverse disabilities, to come together. And most of these youth have not worked or have worked briefly or are facing some real challenges in getting their lives on track. And this project is one that allows them 5 or 6 months to choose something. And what's interesting is your group chose to do something to help the community, not just something, like you said, internal.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was? We
just felt very strongly that we wanted to do something that people would remember and that might actually change even one person's life.
Right.
It means a lot to us. Like, that's
so it
what
was more
we
than
wanted
yourselves.
To do. Yeah.
It was more than about you. It was about trying to make a difference in your community.
Exactly.
And that in itself is pretty revolutionary. Often people get into programs and do things and go, how am I going to benefit? But the fact that your group came together and said, how can we bring this benefit well beyond us, I think says a lot about certainly the group that you were in. Can you tell me a little bit? I mean, we don't get into people's names, but I know that even the characters in the book represents different people and different types of disabilities and different experiences. Yeah. First of all, before we get to that, can you tell me what is the message you wanted to send out?
The message that we were trying to send out with the book is that it doesn't matter if you have a disability or if you're different than somebody, whether it's your color or your attitude. It doesn't matter if you're different than other people. People should accept you for who you are and not try to make you feel like an outcast.
Right. So, I mean, I've obviously read it, so I have a little insight, and I'm not going to tell the ending, not going to do a spoiler, but what I will say is that I was really impressed with the fact that it talked a lot about the true experiences, as I understand it, of the people involved in terms of experiencing bullying, in terms of experiencing that sort of shunning for being different and things like that. So it's basically personal experiences that each of you brought to this story, and then you created, as I understand, a book that represents that and hopefully makes people think a little bit differently. Now, who's your target? I mean, it's obviously the whole world, but who really were you targeting when you wrote the book?
We were targeting children between the ages of like 7 to 12 kind of thing.
Right.
Because like we wanted to make it a more mature book so that the older children could read it and still enjoy it, but not so much that the younger children wouldn't understand it.
Well, because I have to tell you, a friend of mine read it to her 3-year-old niece, and I wasn't sure because I didn't know what the reading was, and she just loved it and wanted her to read the story over and over again and loved the pictures. So I have to show at least the cover of the book, and throughout the episode today we're going to actually put up some different pictures for you. But this is the actual graphic cover. It's so bright and it's so dynamic. I can't tell you how amazed I was by the colors. Can we perhaps take an opportunity and go through the characters and what they each represent, and then maybe a little bit about why? Or I guess each of these characters represents characteristics of the people in the group. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. How difficult or uncomfortable was that for each of you to come to terms with making, bringing that out within your group even?
Well, it took a little while to choose what we were going to do for like little quirks for each character, and like what they wanted to admit that they had problems with, that they wanted to like explore through the book. Like, so it took some time to get the characters down, but I like how they came out.
So there was a lot of self-exploration.
Yes.
What I mean by that, of course, is that each one of you living with unique disabilities had to be comfortable with the statement you were making and also the character you were building, which was essentially based on your own experiences.
Yes.
So, for instance, I see a beautiful pink monkey.
That's Pearl.
Pearl. Can you tell me a little bit about Pearl and how Pearl came about?
Pearl is a monkey that has hearing impairment. So she can't hear the other monkeys very well, and they made fun of her. She's also a different color than they are, which she was always made fun of for because she's pink and they're yellow.
Right. So that particular person, potentially that particular participant would have had a hearing impairment.
Yes.
and been experiencing this and being different, and that really for that person represented the message they wanted to send.
Yeah.
Okay, over here, one of my favorite actual animals, I mean this, I don't know why, but I love sloths, and so when I saw a sloth, I'm not sure everyone would have caught that, but when I saw a sloth, I was really quite excited. But why a sloth?
Well, the person that character represents is, I don't know how to explain it. Like, he's not slow, but he's not fast kind of thing. And we wanted to show that somehow. And sloths normally have slow bodies, but they think at a normal pace. And sometimes he's just like bouncing off the walls.
Right.
So we wanted to make a character that was fast but had a slower mind than the other sloths. So
right. In other words, sloths are traditionally very slow physically,
exactly,
but very sharp, whereas this young man or woman felt a little bit like maybe in their case they were a little slower getting things because it was a cognitive disability, but yet
and that's how they wanted their character depicted. He eats gummy worms for sugar, and it gives him a rush.
That's very interesting. Yeah. That's very interesting. So we have the monkey, we have the sloth. I have to go down to the little green worm, which happens to be visually one of my favorites. I just think it's such a gorgeous little character. You really pulled some stuff together. So tell me a little bit about the worm.
The bookworm.
The bookworm, I'm sorry.
Bookworm. Yeah, he lives in a library. He spent most of his life by himself because he didn't get along with the other worms, because he was a bookworm and they weren't.
They were regular worms.
Yeah, they were normal worms.
So his difference is, normal worm, or what we call the middle-of-the-road worm, versus the worm that maybe is off to the side doing his own thing. So we have a different worm.
He found the book that mentioned the Fountain of Harmony and its legend. And he was the one that started the journey, and they all met each other on the way. So
it's all about making new friends and finding acceptance in new places. And over here, it's a cheetah.
Yeah. Her name is Triad.
A Triad, the cheetah.
Yeah.
And what's happening with Triad?
We wanted to put her in the story because we wanted to show someone who had a more prominent physical disability.
Right.
And having only 3 legs is obviously very prominent.
Okay, because I wasn't sure what was happening there, but yeah, for sure there's a leg missing there. So we have different disabilities represented in the story. So what I'd like to do is, when we come back from our break, is to talk a little bit about the story. Mm-hmm. What's happened since you've released the book, because I know I went to the book signing and I got my signed copy, and I think that other people should be looking for signed copies too, because I think that someday this could be very valuable. So when we come back on Eastlink Television with Inclusion Revolution, I'm going to continue talking about the journey, the Fountain of Harmony, which is a journey for a lot of youth with disabilities in creating it. So before we go, though, I do want to ask you one more thing, and that is, I noticed there were some other characters. I guess I just wanted to get all the characters out before we break. And could you tell me who these characters are then? On the back cover.
Lyle is the lion.
Okay.
And I suppose he'd be more like me. He is extremely shy and he has social anxiety.
Okay.
So that's
he's
where
laying
he came
low.
from.
He's not out at the party.
But he has his friend there, Trace, and she is more outgoing and energetic and rambunctious, and she opens him up more. Like, they have each other as friends, and together he is like moves out of his shell kind of thing.
Okay, so we got all the characters in. So now I can comfortably take a break. We'll be right back with Inclusion Revolution here on Eastlink Television. We'll see you in a minute.